Donald Trump said yesterday that the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia has to kiss his ass. I'm quoting the President of the United States. The President of the United States. Will someone take notice that this is not right? The reason that I think it's important to take notice is that I do believe that if Prime Minister Modi and President Putin and President Xi and President Lula and other world leaders seriously said to Mr. Trump, you've got to stop this before you destroy the world, before you destroy the Middle East, before you destroy Israel, before you risk everything, you've got to stop this. It would make a difference. But we haven't heard that very clearly. That's quite different from saying we call on all parties to stop. That's really quite different. This is a brazen war of aggression by Israel and the United States. I'm saying that the government of India and its other major partners need to say that clearly. If they don't, it's just impunity for the United States, for a president who says that the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia needs to kiss his ass. But they don't say that. They don't dare, it seems. But why is it left to a professor? Sorry, why can't a prime minister of a country of 1.5 billion people and his colleague, the president of a country of 1.4 billion people, and nuclear superpowers, because India, China, Russia are all nuclear superpowers, tell Donald Trump the truth? Stop your delusions. You're risking the whole world.
There should be a person in the White House who's willing to listen, sir. You've heard him yourself. So, anyway.
I do think that Trump would listen. The reason is he wants to play with the big boys. He doesn't want to be dissed by the big boys. And he would be. And he wants respect. Well, the way he gets respect is by stopping this brazen aggression, by telling Netanyahu, who in these global military terms, it can be told to go home and shut up, by the way, because Israel's done nothing but create chaos in the Middle East for decades. That's what responsible leaders should be doing right now, before it's too late. Not catering to delusions, not visiting Netanyahu, who is an indicted war criminal, whose country committed genocide, who is at war across the Middle East. No, this is not right. It's really important right now to get off this escalatory path. The whole world needs that right now.
Right. There are some reports that suggest direct talks between US and Iran, with Pakistan, Turkey and Egypt acting as conduits, mediation efforts with them. Do you think Iranians should trust this process, given that more US troops have just landed in the Gulf?
Of course they don't trust it. They know they're about to be invaded. They've said it just within recent minutes, just before we got on the air. They understand that. And they don't trust these countries. These are not the right countries. How could the BRICS leave this to Pakistan? Are you kidding? The reason it's in Pakistan is that India, which is president of the BRICS, did not say anything yet. It shouldn't be in Pakistan. This is not a credible place for this. The credible place is with Russia, China, and India, the world's three other superpowers, to say to the United States, you've got to stop this. And you've got to make your acolyte, Israel, stop this. We've had enough of Israel. How many wars is Israel going to create? Israel's bombing everyone. It's invading Lebanon. It's bombing Iran. It's bombing Iraq. It's bombing Syria. It's destroying lives and people in the West Bank. It's possible, by the way, to get them to stop. It's 10 million people totally dependent on the United States for its security. All the United States has to do is tell Israel, okay, your rampage is over. Your tantrum is over. But they don't, of course, because no one tells the United States that.
Who's the biggest spoiler of peace in the Middle East, according to you? Israel?
Of course. Israel, of course. But this is so clear because Israel's doctrine is we are going to be greater Israel, they call it, which means we're going to have sovereignty at minimum from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean, which means we're going to rule over or expel or exterminate the 8 to 10 million Palestinians in our midst. So that's the starting point. Then there are some zealots among them who say, why stop there? God gave us all the land from Egypt to Mesopotamia, some of the real crazies say. And one of those is the U.S. ambassador, who's a so-called Christian Zionist, who a few weeks ago publicly said, yes, Israel has all the land from the Nile to the Euphrates. And what happened when he said that? Was he fired? Was he reprimanded? Was he called home? Was he instructed to do something different? Not at all. That was just taken as normal. And so Israel says, great, we have the U.S. backing to do whatever we want, to act with impunity. So of course Israel is the greatest destabilizer of the Middle East. It's been the cheerleader of every war, and not just in the Middle East, but also in Africa, and the Horn of Africa, and in North Africa. It was the cheerleader of overthrowing Gaddafi in Libya. It played absolutely awful role in Sudan, in Somalia, and all the other countries that we've talked about in Lebanon and Syria, in Iraq, Iran, Yemen, Palestine. So, of course, it's the big destabilizer, because it's a country that does not live within its borders. And the United States has granted it full impunity, and too many countries have granted the United States full impunity.
How dangerous do the next 30 days look?
30 days could see the blowing up of the energy infrastructure of the Middle East. It's going quickly. These oil fields and gas fields and refineries and pumping stations and port facilities are all out in the open. They don't have protection. Even simple drones can destroy them, can set them ablaze. 30 days is a long time for this fighting, and it's inevitable that it's going to continue at least 30 days unless it is stopped diplomatically. It's not going to be stopped militarily in 30 days. No way. And but 30 days is enough time to destroy a great deal of the energy infrastructure of the region. And oil prices this morning are at $114 a barrel for Brent. Could be $130, $140, $150 a barrel. And that isn't only for petrol, that's for diesel, that's for fertilizer, that's for all the petrochemicals. It's we're just on the verge of blowing up the world's energy supplies. And not just the Strait of Hormuz. I'm talking about the fields, the production.
Yeah.
We're very close to that. 30 days is a long time in this war.
Okay.
It should stop. It should stop now.
Do you think Iran was, as Trump has claimed repeatedly, ever on the verge of building a nuclear weapon?
Iran was rather desperately trying to negotiate an agreement with the United States for 15 years in which Iran would subject itself to intense international scrutiny to not build a nuclear weapon in return for lifting crushing economic sanctions, which have had a devastating effect on living standards and survival rates of the Iranian people. So they've been trying that for 15 years. I know it personally because Iranian diplomats would contact me. Do you have any idea who in the White House we could talk to? Is there any back channel, anything we can do? This was not a game from their side. They were a little bit innocent in this, thinking that the U.S. was really going to negotiate with them. I don't think the U.S. ever had an intention to negotiate with them. The U.S. wanted surrender. It wanted to reverse the 1979 revolution. It wanted to put Iran back under U.S. control. Israel wants to assert its hegemony militarily across the Middle East and West Asia and the Horn of Africa. And so they did not want a nuclear weapon. And they've said so for 15 years. And every time they tried to show it, they got bombed or assassinated for their effort. So how much bad faith does the U.S. have to show before people say, that's bad faith? But this was absolutely reckless, going back at least to the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. The U.S. wants to control the world. It doesn't want to negotiate with the world. It wants to boss the world around. It wants to tell India, you can buy Russian oil, or you can't buy Russian oil, or you can do this, or you can't do that. That's the American way. And that's the American way everywhere. Demands, not negotiations, demands. The only point of optimism that I would say is that if the big players in the world would directly take this on, it would end, because there's so much bluff in it. There's so much bravado. There's so much delusion. It's possible to talk the United States down, but not when everyone normalizes it and just thinks that a president can talk in these vulgarities or bomb in these vulgarities and get away with it. That's the difference. I'm not pessimistic. I'm just a little bit frustrated that we don't have the grown-ups responding.
How would you rate this moment in geopolitics? Is this one of the most dangerous geopolitical moments that you've encountered in years?
Yeah, I'd say the most dangerous moment since 1945 was the Cuban Missile Crisis, because we were within minutes or seconds of blowing up the world. Here, I would say this is number two, because we're within days or weeks of blowing up the world's energy supply.
Okay, so somebody, you're saying, needs to get up, tell Donald Trump to stop it.
Yeah, and I would say do it as a group. Prime Minister Modi doesn't have to do it by himself. He can do it with President Xi and President Putin and President Lula and President Ramaphosa and President El-Sisi. The BRICS can do it. And the BRICS should do it. And the BRICS shouldn't leave it to Pakistan, frankly. That's not the right way to do this.
Absolutely. I mean, Pakistan, in any case, really, they are happy to throw their lot with anybody right now. And do anything for money, really, because their economy is in a shambles.
Well, that's one of the ways that the U.S. Keeps control. Look at Turkey. I'm sure that Turkey is not happy about this, but the U.S. has its thumb on, or its, I'd say its grip on the jugular of Turkey through the finances. If a country is financially vulnerable, well, the U.S. keeps the pressure on. It says you behave or we will destabilize your economy. We even had our Treasury Secretary, Bessent, who's a kind of a thug, describe when he was in Davos how the U.S. applied maximum pressure on Iran this past year to break the banking system and to break the currency. That's their game. So that is one of the ways that they dictate to other countries. Absolutely illegal, but very real. Now, what I and my colleague Sybil Ferris recommend is a real end to the conflict in the Middle East, because we say that there are interlocking parts. It probably won't happen. We stress that in the article. We're not naive optimists. We're just saying that the way you make peace is to recognize everybody's security interests. That is also the point about Ukraine. Since Russia's security interests are never recognized, there's no peace. The same in the Middle East. If you want peace, which most normal people in the world, I'd say all normal people in the world do, then you recognize everybody's security interests. What are Iran's security interests? Not to be bombed repeatedly by Israel and the United States, and not to have Netanyahu say for 30 years, overthrow that government. It's okay. It can't be more simple than that. The U.S. and Israel need to stop their brazen, blatant, illegal, armed aggression against Iran. This is not even a preemptive attack because Iran wasn't attacking anybody. This is just brazen, naked aggression. And it's the essence of the violation of international law. So that was point number one. Point number two, Trump says every day, I need to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. I don't know whether this is fatuous, whether he's so ignorant he doesn't understand what he does, or whether it's a game. But the simple point is there was such an agreement, and you, Mr. Trump, ripped it up. Of course, that was the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action negotiated in 2015 between Iran and the permanent 5 members of the UN Security Council, not just the United States, but Russia and China, Britain, France, and the US, and Germany, and then ratified unanimously by the UN Security Council. And the essence of it was to underpin the supreme leader's religious command that Iran would not get a nuclear weapon because the supreme leader said this is against our faith. And so Iran put itself under scrupulous inspection and honored the agreement. It was the U.S. that ripped it up. Trump in 2018. I don't know if he remembers. The man on the surface remembers nothing, learns nothing, knows nothing. But I don't really know whether he remembers that he ripped up the agreement that accomplished exactly what he said. Maybe he can remember that the Iranians said again last year and this year they don't want a nuclear weapon. They want to have a negotiated agreement. They want to be under UN scrutiny. Maybe, I doubt it, but maybe he could find an aide to let him know what the Omani mediator said the day before they killed all the leadership, which was, we made great progress and we're going on to a next round of negotiations in Vienna because the Iranians don't want a nuclear weapon. And so this is the second point, is Yes, it's not even hard, Mr. Trump,